Morning, everyone. It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. So I'm going to be doing a lot more videos on, I guess, the topics that pop up most commonly with the parents that I work with, and also the themes that I see and find over my clients' experiences, but also what I found over the last decade or more in working within child behaviors and family dynamics. So today's theme that I wanted to touch on was around negative behaviors. And there's a quote that I love, and it often has parents feel quite calm when they hear it. And the quote that I love and what I often share with parents is that there is no negative behaviors, only protective behaviors. And it's an interesting concept. Either it's one that we are all on board for, or it's one that will challenge a lot of our beliefs that we have around these particular behaviors that we deem as negative. And the thing that I wanted to touch on with these perceived negative behaviors, which one, we first need to question why we see them as negative in the first place. What's the meaning behind the behavior that we've attributed to it? So let's just say it's anger. Okay, well, why is the angry behavior bad? Why does it make my child naughty? What does it reflect about me as the parent? What's the meaning? What's the story? We first need to get really clear on that as the adult, because often it's the story that we're reacting to, not necessarily the child or the anger. But that's a topic for another time. The point that I wanted to raise today is based on how we develop, how our brain and our nervous system develops, and how your children's brain and nervous system is developing. And if you know anything about my work, you know that I love to dig, and you know that I love to work with the nervous system and with the part of the brain that's active in any given moment with that child. Okay, what I find constantly is that we are giving interventions and therapies that are working with the non-active parts of the brain, or the non-dominant part of the brain, okay, aka the logical center of the brain, as a side note. So what I wanted to discuss then is with your child's development and their nervous system, and also you right now as the adult. This is the interesting part. It still applies to you. It's Human Behavior 101. The behaviors that you see that you deem as negative, now they're protective behaviors. Now, how we've evolved is based on survival, okay? That's the first thing to be really clear on. Now, our survival system and how we develop does not give a hoot about food routines, the foods they need to eat. Our survival system and our evolutionary system does not give a hoot about if we get along with our siblings or not and what's acceptable. It doesn't give a hoot about what's acceptable at school. What it does give a hoot about is surviving and feeling safe. So our behaviors and your child's behaviors will often be the behaviors that are trying to keep them safe, trying to meet a need. Remember those, there's no negative behaviors, there's only protective behaviors. So when I hear a parent say that there's all these negative behaviors, or my child's very angry, or they don't listen to me, or they fight a lot, or they're getting into trouble at school, or they don't listen to the teacher, they're all of these things that are deemed negative. And you'll have your own version and you'll have your own limit as to what you believe is negative. My question is never, how can we change these negative behaviors? My first question is always, well, what is this protecting them against? Why are these protective behaviors coming up? Why is this child creating these strategies for themselves? Because when we're young, we create the strategies to survive. We have our survival strategies. And even as an adult, you'll have your survival mechanisms that you've put on repeat for your whole entire life. And once we start to become aware of them, we should be able to pinpoint where they come from. But the beauty of acknowledging this when your children are young is that instead of responding to the behavior, which is really surface level, we can start responding to the deeper level, which is what's going on in that nervous system. And it's for this reason that I focus a lot on parenting the nervous system. We don't parent the behavior, we parent the nervous system, because behaviors are a reflection on what's going on in that nervous system. So parent the behavior and you'll set your child up for failure, and yourself too. So you'll see your child as a failure or a naughty child, or a child that's not learning, okay, or not getting the point, or you'll see yourself as a failing parent or not meeting your child's needs, and this is why they keep behaving this way. So we parent the nervous system, and when we parent the nervous system, then we've got opportunities for connection. Often when we parent the behavior, it can only lead to disconnect because it's full of judgment. And I'm sharing all of this because it's a theme that I constantly see, but it's human behavior 101. So the dynamic you have with your child, you are like bouncing off of each other constantly. You're like I suppose it's like a pinball machine, right? How you respond is how they'll respond. How they think you'll respond is how then they'll navigate how they need to respond. And it's all just this big pile of interaction and feeding off of each other. And usually when we break the cycle of parenting the behaviors and we start tapping into that nervous system, which then means tapping into parenting the part of the brain that is active in those big emotional moments or those heightened moments, that's when we start to see the changes happen, the positive changes. We start to see those meltdowns decrease. We start to see there's more connection than disconnect. My resentment starts to decrease because I understand them more. I've given an opportunity for us to connect. There's less conflict. So, and when I say parenting the nervous system, I mean that we're tapping into the part of the brain that's active, which is the limbic system for most children and teens, by the way, knowing that if we try and rely on logic, we are losing the battle every single time, because when they're heightened, they're not functioning from this part of the brain. So talking therapies with a heightened child, or talking therapies with a child that's highly anxious, talking therapies with a child that is angry constantly or doesn't feel safe or comfortable in that office or with that person or connected with that therapist, absolute waste of time. So we are always tending to the part of the brain that's active, which is the limbic system. And then that is how we start to regulate the nervous system. That is when we start to see different signals being sent to the nervous system, in that we don't need to fight anymore. We don't need to keep escalating. We can start to calm, because guess what's happened? Instead of feeling judged by our parents, we're starting to feel understood by our parents. And isn't that a game changer? That is like what every little mind and body wants. They just need to feel understood, and they just need to feel like they've been able to express what is going on inside of that little nervous system. Often when we have continuous heightened behaviors over a long period of time, or just in that one meltdown, it's because it's been met with resistance. We don't want the anger. We don't want the meltdown. We don't want. We don't want it. We don't want it. And then that creates more of those behaviors, because the nervous system is still feeling it. The nervous system is still there. She's still feeling the anger. She's still feeling the frustration, and it needs to come out in some way. Our behaviors are a reflection on what's going on in our nervous system. So parent the nervous system, then we see calmer, happier, more content children, with the added bonus, which is the big bonus of a connected relationship between you and your child. So I usually go through 3 steps on how we can start doing this really simply. And it's something that I go through in the Happy Home program at much more length and detail. But I'll share it here just to give you an indication. So first steps first, when there's heightened behaviors, is to eliminate any therapies, any talking that appeals to their logic. We're going to scrap that. Delete it. If you've heard a technique that taps into this part of the brain, forget about it in that moment. Not needed, not required. If it's a teaching moment, keep it to when we're regulated, keep it to later. And usually if we are teaching more often than we are just listening and understanding and showing compassion, then we are still missing the ball, and it won't be setting them up for success later on either. So first step, we want to limit our words, because that is here in this part of the brain. It's not active. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your time. Limit your words, because increased words when we've got meltdowns will further escalate them, as well as a whole other number of things, but that's for another time. I go into depth into the program. Step 2 is stop persuading. No more persuasion. So when children hear, no, you shouldn't think like this, or he didn't care about that yesterday, so why do you care about it today? You should be feeling like this. Yeah, but you're a loving boy, so why are you acting like this? It's okay. Why don't you just snap out of it? We'll be happy. We've had a good day today. Why is that not good enough for you? When we start to use persuasive language and start to change their mind, your child's only getting one of two messages. You're wrong and I don't understand you. And this is going to really, really frustrate and sadden and confuse the nervous system. Heighten usually. And the third step is getting curious. So getting curious, if we put that lens on, it automatically turns off the judgment lens. And if the judgment lens disappears and we have that curiosity lens, so we're getting curious into the world of your child, we're using curious language, we're using curious questions, we're using curious tones of voice, curious body language, then there's space for connection and understanding. Only then. Wherever there's judgment, there is no space for connection. And you'll know that, right? You'll know that when you consider the conversations you have with your husband or your partner or your friend or your family. If you ever sense judgment from the other party when you're trying to open up or you're sharing something deeply emotional or emotive, and you sense some judgment or some opinions, you can tell. You know it doesn't feel good. You either get frustrated at what they say, or you decide to shut down and you just never talk to them again. So it doesn't lead to connection. So try those 3 steps. If you have any questions, pop them down below. And if you would like to go into more detail with this about your particular scenarios, or even more so around how to parent the nervous system, because these are just the 3 starting blocks that we start with, then maybe finding out more through the Happy Home program is for you, which you can pop down there you're interested, or you can reach out to me, whatever you like. But I hope this has been helpful in some way, and I will be back again in another few days to share another theme or a pattern from the time I've worked with children and adults over the last 11, 12 years. Bye for now, everyone. Have a good day.